My dear chosen one, you've been chasing a connection that was never real, holding on, fighting, crying, begging the universe for answers, believing with every fiber of your being that this was your twin flame. But what if I told you that this entire connection was a demonic setup? What if I told you that the emotional chaos, the spiritual confusion, the cycles of rejection and false hope were all part of an assignment launched against you in the spirit realm? You were targeted. This wasn't love. This wasn't destiny. This was spiritual warfare. And the person you thought was your mirror was actually sent to drain your soul, derail your purpose, and keep you stuck in emotional bondage. And right now, in this very moment, something massive has shifted over your life. The spiritual contract that kept you tied to this person, the invisible chains that made it impossible for you to let go, have just been canceled by divine order. But listen to me carefully, because the details of how and why this contract was broken are not what you think. There are things that happen behind the scenes, in the spirit realm, that you need to understand before you walk away from this video. If you leave now, you'll miss the revelation that explains every tear you cried, every unanswered prayer, and every reason why God allowed this torment to go on for so long. This is bigger than you realize. And chosen one, if you're already feeling something shifting in your spirit right now, if this word is hitting you in places you can't even explain, I want you to declare it in the comments right now. Type, "The contract is broken," as your public declaration that you're awake, that you're done with this spiritual trap, and that you're stepping into your freedom starting today. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, because what I'm about to reveal next will break illusions you've carried for far too long and help you finally reclaim your energy, your peace, and your spiritual authority. Stay with me until the end, because once I show you the truth, you'll never see this person or this connection the same way again. You believed this was your divine counterpart. You were convinced that this person was sent by God, that every sign, every synchronicity, every intense emotional pull was proof that this was your twin flame. You fought for the connection. You prayed over it. You cried over it. You blamed yourself for the distance, the confusion, the constant emotional instability. But the truth is, none of this was ever about divine love. This was a spiritual trap, a carefully orchestrated assignment, sent by the enemy, designed to drain your spirit, sabotage your purpose, and keep you emotionally paralyzed in a cycle that was never meant to elevate you. The enemy knew exactly where your heart was most vulnerable. It wasn't random. They studied your patterns, your wounds, your deepest desires. They knew how much you longed for connection, how much you believed in unconditional love, how much you were willing to endure in the name of spiritual growth. And they sent someone perfectly designed to fit into the gaps of your healing. Someone who knew how to mirror your light just enough to make you believe this was sacred, while slowly feeding on your energy every single day. And that's why you kept feeling stuck. No matter how much work you did on yourself, no matter how much inner healing you focused on, you kept circling back to the same emotional pain. One day, it felt like breakthrough. The next day, it felt like devastation. One moment, they pulled you close. The next, they pushed you away with silence, cruelty, or indifference. It was a game you didn't even realize you were playing, because deep down, your spirit was still hoping this was part of a divine plan. But that was the illusion. That was the assignment at work. There were so many signs, so many moments when your intuition screamed that something wasn't right. You felt drained after conversations. You couldn't sleep. You had random waves of anxiety that came out of nowhere. Even your connection with God felt weaker, like your prayers were hitting a wall. But still, you stayed. You convinced yourself that all these hardships were just part of the twin flame journey, that maybe this pain was some spiritual test you had to pass. But the real test was seeing through the illusion and realizing that your healing would never come from staying tied to this person. And while you were losing sleep, losing peace, losing yourself, this person was feeding on your energy, consciously or unconsciously. They became addicted to the emotional reactions you gave them. The arguments, the tears, the overthinking, it all fed the assignment. The enemy used your compassion, your loyalty, and your faith against you. And every time you thought about walking away, they'd pull you back with just enough hope to keep the cycle going. This wasn't divine love. This was spiritual manipulation, dressed up to look like destiny. But God, in His mercy, was watching the entire time. He heard every tear-soaked prayer. He saw every night you couldn't breathe from the emotional weight. And when heaven saw that your heart was finally ready to see the truth, the divine order was given. The contract had to be canceled. What was once permitted to teach you, to strengthen you, was now declared over. The spiritual assignment attached to this person failed. The chains were broken, and you, chosen one, were released. When that moment came, something in your spirit shifted. At first, it might have felt subtle, like a sudden stillness, a moment of unexpected peace, or maybe it hit you hard, like a wall breaking down inside your chest. But you knew, deep down, that something had changed. The emotional pull, the obsessive thoughts, the anxiety tied to their presence, all began to fade. The access they once had to your energy was gone, severed by divine hands. And that was only the beginning of your freedom. But freedom doesn't always come quietly. The moment the spiritual contract was canceled, there was resistance. In the unseen realm, the assignment began to fight back. That person may have suddenly reached out to you with random messages, emotional pleas, or strange attempts to reconnect. They felt the energetic cutoff, even if they didn't have the language to explain it. The spiritual supply they once fed from was gone, and now their spirit was panicking, looking for ways to restore the old cycle. But no matter what they tried, the access had already been denied. You may have noticed strange emotional shifts right after this. One day feeling intense peace, the next feeling random waves of sadness or guilt. That's part of the energetic detachment process. Your spirit, after being entangled for so long, was learning how to breathe again. The enemy knew you were vulnerable in this transition phase and tried to use emotional triggers to pull you back into the old pattern. Dreams, memories, even sudden urges to reach out to them, all designed to test if the contract still had a loophole. But it didn't, not anymore. And on their side, the emotional collapse had already begun. The person who once controlled the narrative, who knew exactly how to trigger your emotions, was now sitting in confusion and emptiness. Their mood shifted rapidly. Moments of rage followed by emotional numbness, sudden tears without explanation, sleepless nights filled with restlessness they couldn't shake. They were experiencing what you felt for months, even years, but now, without your energy to soften the blow. The spiritual hunger was real, and it was growing by the day. What they didn't expect was that you wouldn't respond the way you used to. Their usual tactics, the emotional games, the calculated silences, none of it worked anymore. You were seeing through the illusion. Every time they reached for you energetically, you felt it, but you didn't move. That was God reinforcing the boundary in the spirit. Every unanswered text, every time you held your ground, was part of solidifying the closure heaven had already declared over your life. This wasn't just emotional distance. This was divine protection. And while they spiraled, you began to feel something returning to you. Your own energy. The mental fog started lifting. The spiritual heaviness that had followed you for so long began to break. Your sleep improved. Your prayers felt stronger again. Ideas and dreams you had abandoned started resurfacing. It was like waking up from a spiritual coma, realizing just how far you had drifted from yourself and from your purpose. But now, you were back, stronger, clearer, free. But with this awakening came a new responsibility: to guard your peace with everything you have. The enemy doesn't easily release what it once controlled. Even now, there may be subtle attempts to re-enter your life. Messages that sound innocent, random checking-in moments, or even sudden appearances in places where they know you'll be. Don't be fooled. This is a critical phase, and your spiritual discernment must remain sharp. This is not the time to entertain old cycles. This is the time to stand firm. Remember, this isn't just a breakup. This is a spiritual warfare victory, a contract that was written in darkness, designed to steal your energy, your focus, and your destiny, has just been shredded by divine authority. You didn't just survive, you won. And now, the enemy knows you're awake. That's why the pressure may increase for a while. But stay anchored in truth, stay protected. And above all, don't look back. The price of going back is far too high. This is where the real shift in your life begins. Now that the contract is canceled and the spiritual ties are broken, you're stepping into a space of clarity you haven't felt in years. For the first time, you can breathe without waiting for the next emotional ambush. You're no longer bracing yourself for their next manipulation, their next silence, their next crisis, designed to pull you back in. This is the calm after the spiritual storm. But with this calm comes a responsibility to rebuild yourself, piece by piece, from the inside out. And while you're stepping into this new energy, they're sinking deeper into theirs. The emotional collapse on their side isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. Without your energy feeding them, they're forced to confront the emptiness they've been avoiding for years. The distractions that used to keep them numb aren't working anymore. The games they used to play with you aren't giving them the control they crave. And unless they choose to face their own healing, this spiral will continue until they hit a breaking point only they can resolve. You may feel moments of sympathy, even compassion, for what they're going through. That's natural. Your heart was always pure. That's why the enemy targeted you in the first place. But let me be clear, their healing is not your assignment. Their growth, their awakening, their transformation, none of that belongs to you anymore. That season is over. You were never meant to save them. God simply used this experience to awaken you to your own power, your own worth, and your own spiritual authority. And now, it's time to reinforce your boundaries. This means being mindful of your thoughts, your emotional triggers, and the subtle ways the enemy might try to reopen this cycle. Remember, the biggest test after deliverance is discipline. Staying free requires conscious choices. It means praying over your heart daily, guarding your mind, and refusing to entertain anything that smells like emotional manipulation. This isn't about being cold. It's about being spiritually wise. The next few weeks may feel like an emotional detox. Memories will surface. Old feelings may try to sneak back in. The enemy may even plant doubts in your mind, making you question if you made the right decision. But hold the line, chosen one. This is the residue of years of spiritual entanglement being flushed out of your system. Let it pass. Feel it. Process it. Release it. But don't go back. What God closed remains closed for a reason. As you continue healing, you'll start noticing changes in your energy field. People will comment on how different you seem. Your mind will feel sharper. Your spirit lighter. The spiritual gifts that felt muted during this connection will start to reactivate. Your discernment will grow. Your dreams will become clearer. Even your physical health may start to improve. This is what happens when divine alignment returns to your life. This is what freedom feels like. Divine alignment isn't just a feeling of peace. It's a complete recalibration of your mind, your energy, and your spirit back into harmony with God's original design for your life. For so long, you've been operating under spiritual interference, making decisions from a place of emotional distortion, reacting to pain instead of responding to purpose. But now, the noise has cleared. Divine alignment means that your thoughts, your intuition, and your spiritual awareness begin moving in agreement with your higher path. The confusion starts to fade. The anxiety that once felt normal starts to lift. You're no longer pulled by emotional triggers that don't belong to you. Instead, you begin to make choices that feel clean, intentional, and deeply connected to your true self. This alignment also means that the people, places, and situations that once drained you will begin to naturally fall away. You won't have to force it. The energetic frequency you now carry won't be compatible with manipulation, chaos, or emotional games. Conversations that used to trigger you will now feel powerless against your spirit. Old patterns of overgiving, people-pleasing, and tolerating disrespect will dissolve because your energy won't support them anymore. Divine alignment brings a clarity that makes it impossible to ignore what's toxic. It sharpens your discernment, making it easier to recognize when something or someone is pulling you out of peace. And with this clarity comes a level of self-respect that makes returning to old cycles no longer an option. But most importantly, divine alignment reconnects you with your true spiritual authority. The gifts that felt dormant, your intuition, your dreams, your ability to hear God clearly, will start to awaken again. You'll notice that your prayers feel stronger, your manifestations quicker, your sense of spiritual guidance more accurate. Opportunities that align with your purpose will start showing up, and people who reflect your healed energy will begin entering your life. You'll move through the world with a quiet confidence, a knowing that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, no longer running in circles, no longer leaking energy to people or situations that don't deserve access to you. This is what divine alignment feels like in your body, in your mind, and in your soul. And on their side, the absence of your light will become undeniable. They may try to replace your energy with distractions, with other people, with temporary fixes. But nothing will satisfy the hunger they're now facing. The energetic supply they took for granted, the love they manipulated, the emotional access they abused, is gone. They're left to sit with the reality of their own choices. And whether they heal or continue down their path is no longer your concern. You've done your part. Now, it's time to live. What you're stepping into now is not just healing. It's transformation. The lessons you learned from this experience, the pain you endured, the spiritual confusion you survived, have all become part of your new foundation. This isn't just about getting over someone. It's about never falling into this kind of spiritual trap again. Your discernment has been sharpened, your heart has been recalibrated, and your spirit, after all it's been through, now knows how to recognize false assignments disguised as love. This wisdom will protect you for the rest of your journey. You're going to notice new tests appearing soon. The enemy often sends distractions right after a major spiritual victory. Don't be surprised if someone new shows up, with charm, with intensity, with that same energy pattern dressed in a different face. This is why it's critical that you stay grounded. Pay attention to how your body reacts when you meet new people. Trust the tightening in your chest, the sudden waves of anxiety, the inner warning signals that your spirit sends. God has given you spiritual tools. Use them. You also need to close any lingering energetic doors that might still be open. This includes releasing emotional attachments, cutting psychic cords, and surrendering any leftover hopes that this person will suddenly transform into what you prayed for. That was part of the trap, keeping you hoping for change that was never going to come. Speak it out loud if you have to. The contract is broken. I release this connection fully. I reclaim my peace and my energy now. Say it with conviction. Let the spirit realm hear you. Your focus now should be on rebuilding your connection with yourself and with God. Return to your spiritual practices. Start journaling again. Spend time in meditation and prayer. Reconnect with the dreams and goals you put aside while you were entangled in emotional chaos. This is your time to heal, not just emotionally, but spiritually and energetically. Every time you choose yourself, every time you honor your peace, you're reinforcing the new boundary that heaven has set in place for your protection. This new boundary isn't just a mental decision, it's a spiritual structure that God Himself has placed around your life. It's an energetic line drawn in the spirit realm, a divine separation between who you were in that cycle of pain and who you're becoming now in this chapter of healing. Before, your emotional doors were wide open. Your compassion, your hope, your longing for love created cracks in your energy field that allowed manipulation to enter. But now, heaven has sealed those cracks. This boundary was created through your tears, your prayers, your surrender. It's heaven's way of saying, "My chosen one has learned the lesson. Now, no more access for what seeks to destroy them." See, this boundary means that people, energies, and even old thought patterns that once had free entry to your mind and heart will now hit resistance. Where once you felt pulled into old emotional spirals, now there will be spiritual blockages preventing you from slipping back. You might even notice that when certain people try to reach out, you feel an immediate discomfort or a sudden knowing that you shouldn't respond. That's not just intuition. That's the new spiritual perimeter doing its job. It's heaven stepping in where your human weakness used to open the door. The boundary doesn't mean you won't feel tempted, but it does mean that every time temptation comes, there's now a wall of divine protection standing between you and your old patterns. But here's the thing about this new boundary. It's strong, but it still requires your agreement to remain in place. Spiritual protection is a partnership. God has done His part, but now it's your responsibility to honor the boundary with your daily choices. That means saying no, even when your heart wants to say yes. It means blocking, unfollowing, and removing energetic ties without hesitation. It means praying for strength on the days when your emotions want to betray your progress. The enemy will test the walls, checking for weak spots, looking for emotional triggers to sneak back in. But every time you choose peace over chaos, every time you choose stillness over emotional noise, you reinforce that this boundary isn't temporary. It's permanent, it's sacred, and it's non-negotiable. Be aware, there may still be moments where you feel tempted to check on them, to wonder how they're doing, to revisit old memories. That's normal. Emotional detox takes time, but remind yourself, revisiting the past won't bring healing. It will only reopen wounds that God already closed. Whenever that temptation comes, breathe deeply, center yourself, and refocus on the life you're building now. Your energy is sacred. It's time to protect it, like your future depends on it, because it does. You've survived something many people never escape from. False twin flame assignments are one of the enemy's most effective spiritual traps. But you broke free. That's why you're feeling lighter. That's why your mind is clearer. That's why your heart, even after all the pain, is starting to believe in hope again. Because deep down, your spirit knows you were never meant to stay stuck in that cycle. You were chosen for something greater. And now, that path is opening before you. And with that comes a new level of spiritual authority. You're no longer the person you were when this started. The version of you that accepted breadcrumbs, that tolerated emotional games, that ignored their own intuition. That person no longer exists. Now, You're stepping into a season of discernment, strength, and spiritual alignment. The enemy failed. The assignment collapsed. And the contract that kept you tied to this person is permanently destroyed. But now that you're free, it's time to stay free. That means recognizing the emotional patterns that got you entangled in the first place. People-pleasing, overextending yourself, ignoring red flags, romanticizing pain. You can't afford to carry these habits into the next season of your life. This experience taught you how costly it is to betray your own spirit just to hold on to someone who was never assigned to love you. Let this be the chapter where you rewrite your story, with boundaries, with wisdom, with divine discernment leading the way. The next time someone enters your life with intense energy, with dramatic emotional pull, with that too good to be true feeling, pause, breathe, pray for clarity. What feels familiar isn't always safe. Emotional intensity doesn't equal spiritual alignment. Let your intuition speak louder than your loneliness. Let your peace be the filter. The enemy will try again, maybe not with the same person, but with the same pattern. But this time, you'll see it coming from miles away. I want you to understand something very important. This wasn't just a toxic relationship. This was a spiritual warfare assignment. The enemy studied you, targeted your heart, and used one of the most powerful forces on earth, love, as bait. But God turned it around. What was meant to destroy you became the very thing that awakened your discernment and strengthened your connection to the divine. The pain wasn't wasted. The lesson wasn't in vain. You're walking proof that no spiritual trap, no matter how deeply woven, can stand against a chosen one who decides to wake up. And right now, I want you to seal this achievement with a declaration. If this message is touching your spirit, if you know this was your story, write the number 777 in the comments so that heaven, the universe, and even the enemy know that you recognize what happened and that you refuse to go back. If this message brought you clarity, healing, or confirmation, like this video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. I want to deeply thank each and every person who supports us at Buy Me a Coffee. Your support is what allows us to continue producing these videos, improving the quality, and delving deeper into the truth. If you want to support us too, the link is pinned in the first comment. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps this mission grow. And before you go, don't stop here. There's another video waiting for you on the screen right now. Click it now or play the full playlist and dive in. Either way, see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay grounded. May God bless you.